started with something small, almost too subtle to notice. A soft glow from the night light by my daughter's bed, casting gentle shadows that usually comforted her. But one night, as I checked on her, I saw something impossible. Another pair of tiny feet standing just beyond the circle of light. Not hers, not mine, something else. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks. Maybe a shadow or a trick of the light from the hallway. But those feet didn't move. They stayed there, still and quiet, just a few inches away from her bed. I blinked and they were gone. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe the glow from the lamp caught a reflection or a toy lying near her bed. But the next night it happened again. This time the feet appeared clearer, small, bare, and pale, right next to my daughter's sleeping form. I asked my wife if she had seen anything strange. She shrugged it off, thinking it was just fatigue or the tricks of a tired mind. But I knew what I saw. Something wasn't right. I started watching closely, waiting for the feet to appear again. And every night, without fail, there they were, standing just beyond the edge of the nightlight's glow. One evening, as the house settled into silence, I sat beside my daughter's bed, staring at the small patch of floor bathed in soft orange light. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the second set of feet appeared. But this time they moved. Not a full step, just a twitch, like a breath of life stirring in the darkness. My heart raced. I whispered her name, hoping to wake her or scare off whatever it was. She didn't stir. I reached out, but the feet vanished before my hand could touch them. That night I barely slept. I kept imagining what those feet belonged to. A child? A shadow? Something else entirely? I dug into the history of the house, searching for clues. Years ago, a family lived here. A mother and her young daughter. The daughter died suddenly, in the room my daughter now slept in. The story was brief and sad. A sudden illness, no explanation, no warning. I wondered if those feet belonged to her. The nights grew worse. The nightlight flickered, sometimes dimming and brightening as if alive. The feet appeared closer to my daughter's bed, even once at the foot of the bed, standing still, watching. One night, I woke to a cold draft brushing my skin. I heard a faint whisper, so soft I wasn't sure if I dreamed it. Protect her. I froze, heart pounding. The next day, I talked to my daughter about the nightlight. She told me she sometimes sees a girl with feet like mine, shiny and glowing, who watches over her. A friend. Was it really a friend? I didn't know anymore. Sometimes the shadow feels too heavy, and the room feels colder. The nightlight pulses, almost like a heartbeat. I'm not sure if the feet belong to a guardian, or something waiting, patient, just beyond the light. Every night, as I watch over my sleeping child, I wonder if those feet will ever step fully into the room, or if they are trapped forever in the glow of a nightlight, caught between this world and the next. And I wonder what will happen when the light finally goes out. We thought moving would save us. We left behind the creaking floors, the cold drafts in the hallway, and the whispers in the dead of night. The house where every shadow seemed to watch us, where the air felt heavier each time we crossed the threshold. But the strange feeling didn't leave. It followed us, not in the walls or the rooms, but in our daughter, Lily. She was barely a year old when we moved. At first, it was subtle, little things easily dismissed. Her sudden fits of crying, inconsolable and sharp, as if something unseen was scratching at her soul. Her wide eyes staring at nothing, fixated on a corner of the room where no one stood. My wife tried to laugh it off, saying it was just the stress of the move. But I felt it too. The cold prickled down my spine every time Lily locked her gaze on some empty space. One night, I woke to the softest whisper. Not from the baby monitor, but from the room next door where Lily slept. I crept closer, my heart pounding, but the room was still except for the soft breathing of my daughter. Then the whisper came again. I couldn't make out the words, but the voice was low and unmistakably cold, like a breeze passing through a graveyard. I shook my head and convinced myself it was a trick of the mind. We tried to keep normal, even as Lily's behavior became stranger. She stopped crawling toward us, and instead, she crawled to the darkest corners, the ones that felt wrong. She babbled nonsense words that weren't even in any language we knew. Sometimes, she'd giggle at things no one else could see. And then the nightmares started. Every night, my wife and I would hear Lily scream from her crib, blood-curdling and desperate. But when we rushed in, she was always calm, as if waking from a pleasant dream. One night, unable to bear the cries, I stayed with her, holding her tiny hand as her eyes fluttered open. She looked up at me and smiled, but her eyes weren't the innocent blue they'd been before. They were dark, so dark they seemed to swallow the light. "Do you see it, Daddy?" she whispered. I froze. "See what, baby?" She pointed to the corner, the one where shadows gathered and refused to shift with the light. "There," she said, voice suddenly hard. I didn't see anything but felt the cold again. The next day, we found scratches on the nursery wall. Thin, deep lines like claws digging into the plaster. We had never noticed them before, but Lily stared at them with a smile, as if proud. Desperate for answers, we brought in a child psychologist, hoping to explain away what we feared. But even she looked uneasy when Lily repeated phrases in a voice that wasn't hers. Words like "go away" and "stay with me" echoed from her lips, though she was alone. Then came the night it all became too much. We were awakened by a loud bang, the kind that shakes your bones. Rushing to Lily's room, we found the crib overturned, Lily lying on the floor, giggling. Behind her, the air shimmered, distorting like heat waves on pavement. A shadow moved there, too fast for the eye to catch. I reached out instinctively, but it vanished. From that night on, the presence grew stronger. Doors slammed on their own. Objects moved without explanation. But Lily, she changed. She stopped babbling nonsense and started speaking clearly. Not as herself, but as someone else. One evening, she said, "I'm not Lily anymore." And then, "I'm the one who waited." We searched everywhere for explanations. Family history, local legends, anything that could make sense of this nightmare. We learned the house was built over old farmland, land that had a dark past, stories of lost children, disappearances that were never solved. But we had left that place behind. How had it followed us? One sleepless night, I caught Lily staring into the hallway, whispering to someone unseen. Her voice was calm, but chilling. "I'm coming back," she said. And then, with a smile too wide for a baby, she added, "This time you'll see." My wife and I locked eyes, terror settling deep into our bones. We realized that whatever had haunted our old home had attached itself to our daughter. The baby we thought we saved from the darkness was carrying it with her. In her eyes, in her words, in her very presence. We tried everything. Rituals, prayers, professionals, but nothing worked. The darkness was inside her now, waiting, patient, and watching. Every night the whispers grow louder. Not from the walls, not from the shadows, but from Lily herself. "Come play with me," she coos in a voice that isn't quite hers. We're trapped between worlds, between love for our child and the terror she embodies. And the worst part? We don't know if the real Lily is still there, or if the thing inside her will ever let her go. If you listen closely tonight, maybe you'll hear the whispers too. Because some haunts don't stay behind, They move with us, hidden where we least expect. And sometimes they come in the form of someone you love most. The day she turned 7, everything changed. Her birthday started like any other. A small party with balloons, laughter, and a cake covered in pink frosting. But from the moment Emily blew out her candles, something about her was different. Not the excited smile she usually wore. Not the shy thanks when we gave her presents. It was the way her eyes darted nervously around the room, like she was searching for something only she could see. After the guests left, I asked her what she had wished for. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I can't tell," she whispered. I smiled, thinking it was just a child's superstition. "That's okay, honey. It's a secret." But the secret began to weigh on us all. That night, I heard her crying softly from her room. When I went in, she was sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching a small, folded piece of paper. "What's that?" I asked. She wouldn't answer. Instead, she pressed the paper into my hand and said, "Don't open it." I didn't. Days passed, and Emily's behavior became stranger. She stopped playing with her friends, stopped talking about school. She spent hours staring at the window, as if waiting for someone or something. One evening, I found her whispering to her reflection in the mirror. The words were too soft to hear, but her expression was dark and serious. "Who are you talking to?" I asked gently. She looked at me with hollow eyes. "No one," but I knew she was lying. Then, one morning, I woke to find her room freezing cold, an unnatural chill that seeped through the walls. The lights flickered. Emily was standing by the window, pale and trembling. "Mom, it's here," she said. "Who?" I asked, dread tightening in my chest. "The wish," she whispered. "It's coming to take me." I thought it was just childhood imagination until the scratching started. At night, from the walls, a slow, deliberate scratching sound echoed. I would rush to Emily's room, only to find her standing still, staring at the corner where the sound came from. "Can you see it?" she asked, voice trembling. "See what?" But she never answered. One night, unable to bear it any longer, I unfolded the paper she'd given me months ago. The handwriting was strange, jagged and uneven, like a child who had written it in a panic. Inside was a list of wishes, some innocent, some dark. At the very bottom, in hurried script, was a chilling line. "I wish to be someone else forever." That night, Emily disappeared. No note, no sign, just gone. We searched the house, the neighborhood. I called her name until my voice was hoarse, but she never answered. Weeks later, the scratching returned, louder now, as if angry. And every night, from Emily's empty room, a whisper floated through the darkness. "Don't forget the wish." I still don't know what she meant, or what she wished for. But sometimes, when I'm alone, I swear I hear a child's voice, pleading, not for help, but for release. And I wonder if the wish she refused to share was never meant to come true, or if it was a curse we couldn't undo. They say children have a way of sensing things adults miss. But what happens when the very object meant to comfort a child becomes a silent judge, an unblinking witness to the truth and the lies? Started the day I brought home the toy, a small, vintage-looking music box robot, with a worn metal body and glowing eyes that flickered faintly when switched on. My daughter, Emily, was 6 years old, and like most kids her age, she loved toys that moved and made sounds. But this toy was different. It was something I found in a dusty corner of an old antique shop. Something about it called to me. At first, it was innocent enough. Emily would wind the key and watch as the little robot came to life, humming a gentle tune that seemed almost hypnotic. It had a switch on its back that turned it on or off. Nothing unusual. But soon, I began to notice something strange. The toy would turn on by itself. Not just flickering or making a noise, but fully powering up. The eyes glowing, the music playing. This happened when Emily was alone in her room. At first, I thought it was a loose switch or a faulty mechanism. But the more it happened, the more I realized there was a pattern. It only turned on when I told a lie. At first, it was subtle. I'd tell Emily something small, like promising we'd go to the park, then deciding against it or saying I finished the laundry when I hadn't. After a moment, the music box robot would activate, humming its eerie tune in the quiet darkness. It was as if the toy was waiting for me to slip, waiting for me to be dishonest. I tested it one night. Emily was asleep, and I sat alone in the living room. I lied to myself, saying I'd cleaned the kitchen when it was still a mess. Seconds later, I heard the faint whir and the soft, mechanical hum from her room. The toy had turned on. My heart raced. Was this coincidence or something more? I decided to confront Emily about it. I asked if the toy ever did anything strange. She looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Sometimes it wakes up when you say things that aren't true." I laughed it off, but deep down, a chill ran down my spine. Emily was a child. How could she know this? Was she imagining things? That night, I stayed up, watching the toy through the baby monitor. Hours passed. I lied about little things, small, harmless fibs to see what would happen. Each time, the toy came to life, its eyes glowing brighter in the darkness. I realized it wasn't just detecting lies. It was reacting to mine. The next day, I tried to stop lying altogether. It wasn't easy. We all tell little lies to keep peace or protect feelings. But with the toy watching, the weight of dishonesty felt heavier. Then the lies started to change. Not the small ones, but bigger ones. Lies I didn't want to admit even to myself. About work, about money, about how I was really feeling. And every time the toy would turn on. One night, after a particularly harsh argument with my wife, I stormed out of the room. I lied to Emily, telling her everything was fine, that we'd make things better. As soon as I closed her door, I heard the unmistakable sound of the toy waking up. I wanted to smash it, throw it away, but something held me back. Then Emily said something that made my blood run cold. "Daddy, the toy is sad when you lie," she whispered one evening, eyes glistening in the dim light. "It doesn't like the lies." The toy wasn't just turning on. It was judging. It was reacting emotionally in some way. I tried to convince myself it was just my guilt projecting onto a broken toy. But the feeling stayed. The tension at home grew. I became more careful with my words, more honest than ever. The toy turned on less frequently. But then new things began to happen. The music box would sometimes play a different tune. Slow, distorted, almost like a warning. When I asked Emily about it, she said, "It sings a different song when it's really upset." One night, I woke to the music box playing that strange tune. I walked to Emily's room and found her sitting up in bed, staring at the toy. She whispered, "It says it wants the truth." But I was already unraveling. The constant pressure to be honest to a mechanical witness, to live without even a harmless lie, was exhausting. Then the final night came. Elite. It was a small lie. I told Emily I wasn't tired, that I could stay up a bit longer and read her a story. But I was exhausted. I wanted to go to bed. Minutes later, the toy came to life. But this time, the glow in its eyes was brighter, almost angry. The music played louder, faster, like a frantic warning. Emily sat up and said, "Daddy, you have to tell the truth." But I was too tired to argue.
He whispered, I'm sorry.
The toy stopped abruptly. Silence filled the room. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. The robot's eyes were no longer just glowing. They looked alive. Something about the way they blinked, the way the mechanical parts shifted, made me realize this toy was more than just a toy. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me, waiting for the next lie. And somewhere deep down, I wondered, was it waiting to punish me for the next one? Because some toys aren't meant to be played with. Some toys keep score. The next day, I hid the music box in the attic. I thought I could forget it, but every night since, I hear the faintest hum, the softest mechanical clicking from above. And every time I tell a lie, no matter how small, I swear I see two glowing eyes watching me from the darkness. Because some truths are harder to face than others, and some toys never forget.